Hi guys, Hollie Hobby here, coming to you today to talk about how to transplant your tomatoes that you grew by seed into the final growing spot. So what we have here are whiskey barrels, and about a week ago I went through and removed a ton of weeds. We got a lot of rain here, so there was quite a bit to clean up after we had already cleaned up after fall. So very first thing is you want to remove all the things that shouldn't be in there, really starting off with a clean slate. Here in Zone 5 of Colorado, we've got a variety of different types of weeds that try to pop up. These little guys have tiny little leaves, but they spread like little chokers, and they're obnoxious. Their roots are not very deep, but they just tend to fly in with the wind. So when you remove these, you don't want to add them to compost because they do have seedlings. That's not good for your compost. You don't want to continue to spread that stuff about. So just clean it up really, really nice. And then what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the soil so we can dig a hole. This happens to be a random grass, which those tend to have really deep weeds. So the best thing to do there is just kind of twist and pull. You'll be able to get some really good roots out of that. Good roots. It's unfortunate. Hate weeds. Now I'm going to be loosening up the soil, just taking a little trowel of any kind. You'll see as I move things around, the dirt in here is really, really nice. It's a dark material. It's got really rich smell to it. We've added compost over the years, and just adding leaves at the end of the season over fall really helped. Get your hands in there and get dirty. What we're wanting to do is basically transplant the entirety of this pot. So when we put things in, we're going to want to remove as much dirt as possible to make this level with the ground. That dirt that we're removing, we're actually going to mound up at the base. And you'll notice there are some leaves growing at the base here. That's okay. They will do their thing and their magic. What I'm most concerned about is these taller stalks. And what you'll see in other videos is I'm going to talk about the hardening process, because any plants that you buy at the store, they're going to be going through a process of shading and really high maintenance. But the weather doesn't allow for that here. So you want to make sure that your plants establish strong roots by allowing them to have exposure to different temperatures, ideally more than 50 degrees, as well as the wind. Because when they don't have that, then they can break easily. They're not going to have a strong base, and we really want that strong base so these leaves can produce fruit and flowers, and the pollinators can do their magic. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm just going to be removing some root stems that I find, and then trying to dig a hole big enough for this little baby. Now I am going to be disposing of all of this matter because I don't want it to also grow in the grass. And you'll see now that my hole is definitely deep enough. So what I'm going to be doing, if you have a tag for what kind of plant it is, it's a good idea to just shove that in the side. That way it's a good reference point for you later. I know what kind of plant this is. Actually, this one, a friend of mine grew. She had an amazing grow room inside of her home, and some of my seedlings actually didn't grow from the seed packets I got. So I'm going to be looking at the manufacturer that I chose and letting them know. But that doesn't always happen. Like, you can't say you're going to get a packet of seeds and then you're going to have that many plants from it. It just happens. It's nature. And so you take a risk, you try it out, something doesn't work, then you adjust. You'll notice that this already has a stake. It's because when I received her stem wasn't super strong. She was compact in a room with a lot of other plants. And so I went on ahead and staked her up. The best way to get the plant out of the pot is to go on ahead. You want to turn it on its side with your hand on the base. And hopefully the ground is just loose enough and the roots are not peeking through to where this will easily come off. You'll see here this is pretty established. The root system is really strong in here. So what I'm gonna wanna do is break apart the bottom of this just a little bit in order to give it some cushion and room for growth, because now it's gonna know it can expand itself. So just breaking apart, gently touching the ends of these roots, giving them a little bit of air and movement. I'm gonna place that right in here. You'll notice I'm shimmying a little bit. That's just to kind of establish the foundation of a solid area. And you'll see that I do have a ton of dirt on the outside here. So I'm gonna mound that all in, and then we're gonna add a support beam, because tomatoes do grow and spread. What you don't wanna do is plant too many tomatoes in one space. Look at the growth size of the plants that you are planting. Every single panel with seeds will tell you approximately the size and shape. These happen to be cherry tomatoes, which they produce a ton of fruit throughout the entire season, and the strength is going to weigh things down. So without a kind of support like a tomato cage, it's not going to do really well. I'm going to have to find some sort of stakes and things like that to tie it up. And in the case of your fruits doing really well as well, or if you have heavier plants like beefsteaks, they are going to want to hang. So you are going to have some sort of support and probably additional support added to it. So the whiskey barrel I found is the perfect size for my tomatoes without any other plants included. You're going to be looking at your garden and thinking, man, that's just a tiny little plant, but it is going to grow. So don't put a bunch of peppers and other things in here. It just isn't going to make sense for the success of this system. We want to make sure that the dirt and the nutrients and the strength of the roots get everything possible from what's in the system, and then we're going to feed it over time. I will do a video to show you about how to do that. So I'm just going to hold the base here and start piling it in. Like I mentioned, I want this to be a mound. We need a nice solid support system, because over time that mound will start to flatten. And if you can, for anything that you plant, it's a good idea to give it a nice solid mound. Spread the dirt around evenly. Now you'll see in previous videos that I do water the hole before I put a plant in. I've not done that today because we did get a ton of water yesterday and the day before, and I just don't want there to be root rot inside there. So I've eliminated that step, but it is a really good idea for you to add water inside the hole before adding your plant and then watering it again. Now before I water it, I'm going to go ahead and add its support system. This one is an old 4-tier tomato cage. They do come in 2-tier and I believe larger. The newer ones tend to have a lot more, they're a lot more solid material as far as the metal. But you just want to really, if it's bent at all, try to straighten it out as much as possible. But if they're really pointed inward, which there's some that come with this shape and it's a tight little triangle, you want to spread those out because you don't want to hit those roots and hurt your plant. You also want to make sure that as you're putting it on, that you navigate the leaves as much as possible. You don't want the leaves to break as you're installing this. You also don't want the ring to be too low to the ground. Give it some space and some room to grow up, because as it's growing, you can actually move the different arms of the stem over and above the edges so that it can learn how to grow upwards instead of just outwards, because when it's fully grown, it will grow outwards. We definitely don't want anything to break, so we're just going to take our time and be as gentle as possible, moving each branch of this stem through the unit as we're installing it. Like I said, you will be tempted to get it all the way to the ground. You don't want that ring to be on the bottom. You need that support higher up. So it's okay to allow it to find its way. All right, next step is watering, and then we're gonna move on to another. Okay, you'll notice I have 2 different kinds of watering cans. This one has a spout and with like a sprayer, and this one does not. It's important with any type of above ground system that you water the roots not the leaves. So you can use either to do so. I tend to use a sprayer like this for watering the base. It's actually very empty, this can, but you get the idea. I tend to use one like this more for food. So when I cover the food and the nutrients video, you'll get an idea for what that looks like. It doesn't smell good, but they need the nutrients. The reason why you want to feed plants food is because there are so many nutrients in the dirt as it is. The entire plant is going to absorb and consume all that nutrients very, very quickly. So it really takes only a few weeks. And so really about once every 10 days you want to feed them food. And that can come in a variety of different forms. I'll talk about in a different video. But that's as simple as it is, my friends. Follow those steps and you'll have a successful tomato garden in no time. Cheers to your success, and let's get dirty in the garden.